Hello dear viewers, welcome once again to my informative educational channel called Learn Bio with Janet, where you will be learning Form 4 and Form 5 biology with clarity and with an emphasis on creativity and critical thinking to enhance your learning. I'm teacher Janet with many years of experience in teaching biology, and for me teaching bio has always been worthwhile and rewarding when I see my students excel in this subject. These teaching videos will help you gain a deeper understanding of biology and improve your memory of biology facts. Plus, it will give you tips on writing excellent answers for your biology exams. Today we have another exciting and interesting biology lesson on lipids. This subtopic will be divided into two parts, that is, there will be two videos on it, as there are a lot of stuff to explain based on the textbook and syllabus requirements. As Thomas Edison once said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration, which means 99% work or study. I hope that you will enjoy these videos as you are learning too. Remember to like, comment, share and subscribe. Let us get started. The learning outcomes for this lesson are as follows. After this lesson, you should be able to list the elements in lipids, B. Explain the main types of lipids, C. Describe the formation and the breakdown of a triglyceride, D. Write and explain the word equation for the formation and the breakdown of a triglyceride. And E and F will be discussed in the second video. So we will skip the last two on saturated and unsaturated fats and the importance of lipids. Let's now discuss the various properties of lipids. Firstly, the chemical composition of lipids. All lipids contain three elements: carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So the short form is CHNO, or just remember CHO. Now this is the same as for carbohydrates. They also have these three elements, CHO. However, there is a difference in the ratio of hydrogen to oxygen atoms. Okay, H to O is higher than 2:1 ratio in the carbohydrates. Right? So for lipids, they have more hydrogen, much more hydrogen than oxygen, more than the 2:1 ratio. 2 hydrogen to 1 oxygen ratio that is in carbohydrates. Number 3, the properties. They are not soluble in water, as we know. When you try to mix some oil with water, the oil will float on top of water. So they are not soluble in water, but soluble in the organic solvents such as ether, alcohol, and chloroform. Number 4, they are hydrophobic, meaning that they are water hating. Hydrophobic means hating water or repelled by water, okay, or repels water. And this we have studied in chapter 3, alright, like the phospholipid bilayer. The lipid part of it is hydrophobic too. Okay, since they do not mix with water, they are not soluble in water, therefore they are hydrophobic. And they are non-polar compounds, meaning that they don't have uneven distribution of charges in the molecules. Okay, so they are evenly not charged at all. They are not charged at all. Alright? And they are found in plant and animal tissues. Now, what are the main types of lipids? All these are lipids: fats, oils, waxes, phospholipids, and steroids. Now we'll be learning each one as we go along, so let's go further into the topic. Now, lipids are not polymers because they are not formed from many repeating units of a type of monomer, right? There's no one monomer in a lipid where a large quantity of the monomers are joined together. Not like starch. Starch is made up of many repeating units of glucose joined together. Okay, but for lipids you cannot find any monomer which is joined in large quantities. Now number 6, the most common type of lipid are the triglycerides. Okay, and fats and oils come under this category. So like the fats in the animal solid, it's in a solid form. Oils are in liquid form. For example, your cooking oil, maybe palm oil or sunflower oil or corn oil and so forth. Okay, all these are liquid, so they are called oils. They are liquid at room temperature. If they are solid at room temperature, they are called fats. Now, food source of triglycerides. So these are fats. Animal fat in meat and chicken, butter, margarine, coconut oil. Now, these are all liquid oils. Okay, coconut oil, olive oil, fish oil, avocado is a fruit, like this one here, this green fruit, which is quite expensive and is grown in other countries, not our own. Okay, nuts as shown here. Almonds are this type of nuts. It's a bit longish and it has lines on the surface. Okay, walnuts not shown here. So these are cashew nuts, not walnuts, and seeds like pumpkin seed, for example. Let's discuss the food sources of lipids. Lipids have been in the limelight for the past 10 years or so because some lipids cause cardiovascular diseases, and the consumption of such lipids need to be limited. So there are good and bad types of fats, as they say. We'll discuss that in the next video. Okay, here are some good fats: olive oil, salmon, avocado, nuts and seeds. All these have lipids in them. Now, meat, butter, chicken fat, they also have lipids, right? But the consumption of the lipids from these sources should be reduced, okay, in order to safeguard one's health from the bad effects of these lipids. Now, cakes and fried foods also have lipids in them: cheese, coconut and margarine. Okay, now let's talk about the formation of triglycerides. So what is a triglyceride? A triglyceride, which is a type of lipid, is also known as a type of ester formed from the condensation of one glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acid molecules with the removal of 3 water molecules, or 3 molecules of water. Firstly, what is an ester? So in organic chemistry, an ester is a compound that is formed when an acid and an alcohol reacts together with the elimination of water molecules, or with the removal of water molecules, as in condensation. Okay, first, what is the acid? The acid is the fatty acid, and it reacts with an alcohol, which is the glycerol molecule. Glycerol is an alcohol. Notice the OL at the end here, and OL for alcohol. Okay, so the alcohol is the glycerol molecule and the acid is the fatty acid molecule. So when these two react together, then condensation occurs and they will combine with one another with the removal of molecules of water. Okay, so don't worry about the numbers here at first, because later on you will see how it comes about. Okay, and as we know, condensation is a process whereby few smaller molecules, like here got four smaller molecules combine together to form a larger, more complex molecule, which is the triglyceride, with the removal of molecules of water. That is condensation. Okay, so it fits in here. So you have to memorize the definition of triglyceride, how it's formed. But we'll discuss how we can write it later on at the end of the lesson. Okay, the formation of triglyceride. So what is a glycerol molecule and what is a fatty acid molecule? Okay, let's look at how it is defined. A glycerol molecule is a 3-carbon alcohol that has 3 hydroxyl groups, OH group. Only 3 carbons in the alcohol. Okay, and these 3 carbons are linked to 3 hydroxyl groups. We will see this in the next few slides. Okay, so don't worry about that. Then the fatty acid molecule has 3 parts. It consists of a straight chain of carbon atoms with hydrogen atoms along the chain, because the hydrogen combines with or binds to the carbon atoms. Okay, the hydrogen atoms bind to the carbon atoms all along the chain, and at one end of the chain you have a hydrogen atom, okay, which binds with the carbon atoms. Now the other end of the chain has a carboxyl group, COOH, okay, and these 3 parts, carbon, hydrogen, and carboxyl group, makes up the fatty acid molecule. Let's go further into the structure of glycerol, fatty acid, and triglycerides. Now let's find out more about the glycerol molecule. As we know, glycerol is an alcohol. So what is an alcohol? It is an organic compound that has at least one hydroxyl group, OH, oxygen and hydrogen, bound to a saturated carbon atom. Okay, so we'll discuss this when you look at glycerol. So glycerol is a 3-carbon alcohol that contains 3 hydroxyl groups. That's why it's called an alcohol, with the 3 hydroxyl groups in it. So this is the molecular structure of glycerol. You can see 3 carbon atoms, okay, in this alcohol, and on the left hand side, the carbon forms bonds with hydrogen, and also down here and up here. Then on the right hand side, forms bonds with hydroxyl groups, okay, 1, 2, and 3. So as long as there's at least one hydroxyl group, it would have been called an alcohol. So it's called an alcohol because it has hydroxyl groups here, and it's bound to saturated carbon atom. It means that the carbon atom has formed single bonds, 4 single bonds with other atoms or molecules. That is a saturated carbon atom. It cannot take any more. It cannot form any more bonds already. Okay, that's the maximum number of bonds, 4 bonds, okay, between the carbon and the other atoms. But basically, what is important here is glycerol is a 3-carbon alcohol that contains 3 hydroxyl groups, okay, and these hydroxyl groups will react with the fatty acid to form the triglyceride. These hydroxyl groups that will react with the fatty acid. What is a fatty acid? A fatty acid consists of a straight chain of carbon atoms with hydrogen atoms along the length of the chain and at one end of the chain, and a carboxyl group, which is COOH, at the other end. So let's look at the structure here. So this is a fatty acid, so molecule. It consists of a straight chain of carbon atoms here. The number of carbon atoms can vary, not necessarily 6 as in this diagram. And then with hydrogen atoms along the length of the chain here, because the hydrogen atoms bind to the carbon atoms. And also there's a hydrogen atom at one end of the chain here. Okay, so this is called the hydrocarbon chain. Hydro means hydrogen and carbon is carbon. So hydrocarbon chain consists of the carbon and hydrogen atoms. Then at the front end here, you have a different group of atoms. It's the carboxyl group. The carboxyl group consists of a carbon atom which forms a double bond with an oxygen atom here and forms a single bond with a hydroxyl group. So this carboxyl group, COOH, is actually a type of group that is found in organic acids, which are called carboxylic acids. Meaning to say, this is why the fatty acid is called an acid, because of this group that is found in acids, the carboxyl group. Okay? And it's this carboxyl group, this part here, that will react with the glycerol molecule to form the triglyceride. We'll talk about that later. Okay? So if you look at the general or just a simple depiction of this molecule of fatty acid, it looks like this. The circle here represents the carboxyl group. Okay? And then this zigzag shape up and down, this represents the hydrocarbon chain here. Okay? So this is a simplified diagram of the fatty acid, and this is the molecular structure. So why do we need to know this structure? Because in the second part, the second video, we'll be discussing something about this hydrocarbon chain. Okay, that is different among the different triglycerides. Okay, so but then you do not need to know the whole formula here of the fatty acid. As far as this syllabus is concerned, it's more for your understanding. Okay. We are ready to discuss this term, triglyceride. From this name or term triglyceride, we can find out what it means, all right, or what are the components of the triglyceride. Tri here stands for 3 fatty acid molecules. The word tri is 3, but they did not mention the fatty acid, all right, just 3. It's 3 fatty acid molecules combined with 1. Now, glyceride here actually means the glycerol molecule, okay, combined with 1 glycerol molecule to form the triglyceride. Okay, so from the name we know that 3 fatty acid molecules combine with 1 glycerol molecule to form the triglyceride. Okay, so a triglyceride is an ester formed from the reaction between glycerol and 3 fatty acids, and this process is condensation, in which water molecules are removed or formed. Okay, so number 2, triglycerides are the main components of body fat in humans, in other vertebrates, and in vegetable fat or in plants. So that's why we study triglycerides, because they are the main type of lipids found in organisms, especially in the body fat. Okay. Now, let's look at the formation of the triglycerides in more detail. So this diagram is quite important for objective question or structured question. So 1 molecule of glycerol, represented by this rectangle, plus 3 molecules of fatty acids. Through condensation, they will combine together to form the more complex molecule of triglyceride, and 3 water molecules are removed. How is that so? You see, condensation occurs at every point here where the glycerol forms a bond with the fatty acids. Okay, so glycerol forms a bond here with the fatty acid, therefore one molecule of water is removed, and here too another water molecule is removed, and the third one. Okay, that's why it's 3 molecules of water formed and only 1 triglyceride. Okay, because 1 glycerol molecule combines with 3, not 1, 3 fatty acids. Okay, so sometimes the fatty acid is depicted as a molecule like what we saw just now, a circle with a zigzag tail. Okay, so that's the process of condensation. And then how about the opposite reaction? Is hydrolysis, where the triglyceride is broken down into fatty acids, 3 fatty acids and 1 glycerol molecule with the addition of water. That's the reverse process called hydrolysis. Okay, so try and remember this picture in your mind. Right, to help you understand further, let's look at the molecular equation, okay, where molecules are shown. So this is the glycerol molecule, 3 carbon alcohol with hydroxyl groups here. So it combine with the 3 fatty acids, all right, which have the carboxyl group, okay, and the hydrocarbon chain. So what happens is here, the hydroxyl group of glycerol plus 1 hydrogen atom from the fatty acid will combine to form 1 water molecule. Same for the second carbon atom here and the third one. So the end result is we get this triglyceride. It has 3 carbon atoms here, and then it forms a bond with the fatty acids, 3 fatty acids. Okay, but what happens in between here? 1 water molecule has been removed. Okay, and then the reverse process is the breakdown of the triglyceride to form the glycerol and fatty acids again. Now this diagram you do not need to remember in this way, I think, because it's not in the textbook, but this diagram will help you to understand how the triglyceride is formed. So I don't think you have to memorize all this molecular structure for fatty acids and glycerol. In fact, for fatty acids, the hydrocarbon chain is different. Some may be longer, some shorter. Okay, not necessarily having 7 carbon or 6 carbon atoms. Now, there's a diagram here that's found in many books, which I'd like to discuss with you. Okay, so this diagram is about the formation and breakdown of fats and oils, and it's quite similar to some of the diagrams that I've discussed with you just now about condensation and the formation of the lipids. So 1 glycerol molecule plus 3 molecules of fatty acids combine together through condensation. So far so good. But look at the product form, the triglyceride, okay, which is either a fat or oil. Now, the triglyceride, can you see that the carboxyl group or the acid part of the fatty acid is not combined with the glycerol. In fact, it is the hydrocarbon chain that's combined with alcohol, which is not really accurate. So it should be something like this. If you want to draw it like that, the circular part is the carboxyl group. It reacts with the hydroxyl group of the alcohol called glycerol. Okay, and the hydrocarbon chain does not react with the alcohol. Okay, the zigzag shape. So you can go and do your own research on the net, Google up all this formation of fats and oils if you want to try. Just develop some critical thinking skills and then judge it for yourself, okay, whether this structure is correct or not. So I won't comment any further, but just to share with you some things, because for science we are always after the facts, okay, the true facts. So anyway, if it comes out in the exam and is accepted as a diagram that is correct, then we just accept it, okay. Although it's good to know whether this is correct or not. This diagram could have been passed down from many years of from the old syllabus, and maybe it was not checked to see whether it was correct or not, okay. But you can do your own research, okay, and find out for yourself. So I won't comment any further on that, just to show you that this may have a problem, this diagram. Now the conclusion from all this is that triglycerides is a type of lipid that's commonly found, okay, and there are two types of triglycerides: fats, which are solids at room temperature. Normally these are the animal fats like chicken fat and butter, okay, they are triglycerides. Or they may be oils, which are liquid at room temperature. Now example of this is like the corn oil, or anything that's an oil, no, the form of a fluid, corn oil, olive oil, palm oil, they're all oils. Okay, so normally oils are from the vegetables or plants, whereas fats are from the animals, the fats from the animals. So these two, fats and oils, are triglycerides. And as we have studied the structure of fats and oils of triglycerides, they are made up of one glycerol molecule and three fatty acid molecules that are formed or combined through condensation. And triglycerides can be broken down into fatty acids and glycerol by hydrolysis. Okay, so these are some of the things we studied. In your learning outcomes, you have to discuss the formation and breakdown of triglycerides. So we already discussed the formation, now the breakdown of triglycerides. Triglycerides can be hydrolyzed or broken down into smaller molecules of fatty acids and glycerol through the process of hydrolysis, where water is added as a reactant. So this is the reverse of condensation. So take a triglyceride and add 3 water molecules, okay, and through a process called hydrolysis, the triglyceride will divide or break up to form the 1 molecule of glycerol and 3 fatty acids. We have already discussed a lot of things about the formation of the triglycerides. However, the formula for glycerol, the molecular formula for glycerol and for fatty acids may not need to be remembered because it's not in the textbook, but it's more for your understanding of the topic. Okay, so these are the things here that you need to know for your learning outcomes, which you definitely must know. Okay, so at least be able to answer these questions here. Okay, now list the elements in lipids. What are they? Yes, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Please spell it out in full. Okay, explain the main types of lipids. So state the 5 types of lipids. What are they? Fats, oils, waxes, phospholipids, and steroids. Now the explanation means we have to state something about their structure or their uses. So that will be discussed in the second video. Okay, now describe the formation of a triglyceride. Now this question can be asked in the structured questions. Alright, so whereas these two here, the top two questions, can be asked in the objective questions. Right, so how to explain formation of a triglyceride? Let's say it's 4 marks or 3 marks. So a triglyceride is formed by what process? Yes, condensation. When how many molecules? What molecules will combine? 1 molecule of glycerol and 3 molecules of fatty acids. And then in the process, water molecules will be removed. Okay, let's read together. A triglyceride is formed by condensation when 1 glycerol molecule combines with 3 fatty acid molecules. 3 water molecules are removed in this process. Now, the next one is the breakdown, also maybe about 3 marks. Okay, so it's just the reverse of condensation. So the triglyceride is broken down by what process? Yes, hydrolysis. Okay, and into 1 glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acid molecules, and 3 water molecules are added in hydrolysis, or there's addition of 3 water molecules. So that is based on the definition for hydrolysis. Okay, the next learning outcome. Write and explain the word equation for the formation of a triglyceride. So write down and then explain the word equation. What is a word equation? A word equation only contains the words, not the formula, the chemical formula of the compound stated. Okay, so thankfully you just need to write it in words. So the word equation is glycerol plus fatty acids through condensation. We get triglyceride plus water. Then you have to explain this equation. So a triglyceride is formed by condensation when 1 molecule of glycerol combines with 3 fatty acid molecules, and in the process 3 water molecules are removed. Okay, easy. Okay, the last question here in the learning outcome is write and explain the word equation for the breakdown of a triglyceride. Just now it was the formation, now it's the breakdown. Okay, so the equation is also a word equation, just using words, no chemical formulas needed, and it's the reverse of condensation, right? So just write the reverse of condensation. Triglyceride plus water through hydrolysis produces glycerol and fatty acids, right? So to explain this, we write a triglyceride is broken down by hydrolysis into smaller molecules, that is 1 glycerol molecule and 3 fatty acid molecules, and 3 water molecules were added as a reactant in hydrolysis. So always remember, for hydrolysis, I told you that you can imagine there's a hydro arrow to lysis. So the word hydro means water. It means water must be on your left hand side of the equation to show that it is a reactant. Lysis means breakdown, so it's on this side. It means the final molecules must be smaller than the original molecule, okay, because it's a breakdown process. Now that ends our video for this lesson. So in the next lesson, I'll go on to part 2 of lipids, where we'll discuss saturated fats and unsaturated fats and the functions of lipids. Thank you and goodbye.